Good morning, Bardstown and Nelson County, and welcome to another edition of Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you on this chilly Wednesday morning. At least it's not raining or snowing, Margie.
Absolutely. I was afraid I was going to wake up to frost on my windshield and have to get out there and hack it off.
Well, I had the same concern. As cold as it was last night, and it's I don't know why, but the first frosted windshield always takes me by surprise. And I'm always 10 minutes late for where I need to go.
Exactly.
Well,
it wasn't there. I mean, I guess maybe there wasn't enough moisture in the air or some reason, or either that or it just melted off before I got out there. I don't know.
Right. Now I will tell you, and maybe we should do a show on this, of the listeners' creative ways to scrape a windshield when you don't have a window scraper.
Fingernails?
No, actually, I found that the plastic cups you get from fast food restaurants, if they're empty and you turn them upside down, they'll usually, and you press hard enough, there'll be enough area that you can scrape with it, unless it's really ice. Then you're out of luck. But,
then you better have a way of preheating your car.
Exactly. I've used cassette tape cases besides cups. 8-track, if you remember 8-tracks, those work really well. Depends on how curved your windshield is.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Necessity is a mother. That's right. All right, Margie. We'll move on.
We'll move on.
Today we're joined in the studio by State Representative Candy Massaroni. And welcome, Candy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. I know that before the show we were talking about that, I think a lot of people think that when the General Assembly isn't meeting, that not much is happening for our state legislators. But I can tell you, driving up and down the Parkway, how many legislative license plates I've seen over the years. And so as a legislator, the job isn't over when the General Assembly convenes the session.
Absolutely. And we do a lot of constituent services, which is my absolute favorite thing to do. Mm-hmm. And we have committee meetings throughout the summer when the session starts. So.
Well, I appreciate the updates that you and Jimmy Higdon provide us. If it wasn't for those updates, we wouldn't know how important the interim is and all the committees, because that's where a lot of the heavy lifting gets done.
It is.
Prior to the, because the session is so short, really. Of course, we have a longer one coming up in January.
We do, and it's going to be a budget session, so it's going to be, I think, a very difficult session. There's a lot of people needing or requesting money, and so it's hard to allocate it to the correct people. So
right, and there's always, just like any time, there's never enough money to fund every worthy project.
Absolutely.
So they have to be prioritized. And I know that the county is looking to get some funding for various road projects, and I think there's been some effort to prioritize those projects, and hopefully that will result in funding for the ones that are the highest priority.
Yeah, we actually have some of the projects that we really need in the county already priority. The 245 project, it's a dangerous road. We just had a meeting on that yesterday, a public meeting, so we're hoping to get that moving quicker rather than later, because the area is dangerous, it's congested, and we have a lot of youth driving on that road, so I'm excited to get that going.
Good, and that's the project to basically widen it from...
To widen it, yes.
From like Flagey Hospital?
all the way to past Birnheim. There is a lot of environmental aspects that they have to look at being around Birnheim as well. So.
Well, I tell you, I can remember when it was just built, I used to ride my bicycle to Birnheim. And, of course, back then, there wasn't nearly as much traffic.
No, I think it'd be pretty dangerous to try that these days. You'd have to be a brave soul to...
Yeah, of course that...
Well, you have to... This is what we're on now is what was called the new 245. Then the old 245 was a real death trap.
Yeah. Now, or if you were a kid, it was a lot of fun to be in the back seat going up and down all those hills.
Yeah.
My mother hated it because we'd be in the back seat, woo, going.
Well, only a kid could call it fun. But yeah, it definitely needs a lot of work.
A lot of work. That's right, because it hasn't changed since it was built, and I couldn't tell you the year it was built, except I was a much younger man.
And I think those changes will be coming as quick as the government can make them come.
Yeah.
Right, and I know that project is the city of Bardstown is work, and North Nelson Water District. They're working to construct a line to the Louisville water system, and right over in Bullitt County, and where that line goes depends on how the road project proceeds.
We're really trying to do it strategically. We don't want to put water lines in and have to tear them out. So we're trying to work with them to get them done together.
Sure. So that's kind of delayed things, but it's necessary because you don't want to have to relocate a new.
Absolutely.
Do they already have the plans made? I mean, I know it's an idea, and I know it's an aim and an intent, but do they already have it mapped out as to what they're going to do?
We had some primary designs, and the community got to come together yesterday and look at it, do their input. So we're hoping those designs, after the community input, we can get those designs on to the next step.
And I think once those are finally finalized, then things can move forward.
And it's pretty massive when you do something that big.
Are they just thinking of straightening it out or widening it?
We're wanting to widen. Definitely widen it. Put some safety precautions in, or especially around 509. There's a lot of accidents and stuff there, so maybe doing something like Dixie Highway, you can't turn left, you have to turn right and then go turn around to keep those collisions from happening. So. Right.
Yeah, that's always been I go that way a lot going home, cutting through 509, so that's always been a concern, pulling in from 245 and also trying to get out of there.
Yes.
And making a left turn is dangerous.
It is. My mother actually lives over there, and I have a daughter that's going to be driving back and forth to Grandma soon. So it terrifies me as well as many constituents that's reached out that has young people driving. They're like, we're experienced drivers, or teenagers. They take more risk, and it's just dangerous. So
yeah, if it's anywhere near peak hours, I won't attempt a left from 509. I'll make a right and go down somewhere and do a turnaround. Just I guess you get older, your reflexes are slower. I guess that's what I'll blame it on.
Well, and by that time you've learned to be cautious.
That's right. Yeah, not
these younger brains aren't as tuned into cautiousness.
Yeah, I was a little more of a daredevil back then, I think, but I lived to tell about it, thankfully. All right, well, Candy, you're going to be completing. I guess you halfway through your first term, pretty much.
Yes, I completed my first 30-day session last year, so I will be going into my 60-day session this year. It's constitutionally mandated for 60 days. So.
Right, and this is a budget session, so I'm sure it'll be exciting right down to the wire.
It will be.
Last day of the session. And I don't know if I really haven't checked to see if there's been a lot of bills pre-filed, but how many? You said there were a lot of bills filed in the last session.
I think that we had over 1,200 bills. We no longer can pre-file bills in the House.
Oh.
So, but I've heard from some of the drafters that they probably have about 1,500 bills.
Wow.
Being requested to be drafted. So, getting a bill through is very challenging, which it should be. You don't want it to be a little challenging. So.
Well, how was? I can imagine that your first session was fairly well dominated by discussion about bourbon and barrel taxes.
It was, and myself and Senator Higdon, we worked really hard to stop the House Bill 5 along with our local officials. Unfortunately, it's hard to fight corporations and when you have leadership on board, and we had it beat into the last moment, and the governor made the phone call to the minority caucus and asked them to help support it. So we lost out. I think they had over 55 urban lobbyists up there the last couple of days before it passed. So
but I will tell you, I think that the support that you and Jimmy Higdon and all of our area leaders had, the influence changed that bill from its initial version.
It did. And we made it a little less painful. And we extended the time when we have a little bit more time to look at other revenues that we can get. So and I think that was the main influence, was to make it less painful and to just kind of spread out its implementation. And I think that if we couldn't avoid it, that was probably one of the better ways to implement it. I think so, but I mean, the fact is, it's still going to hurt the citizens in Nelson County in the long run. I mean,
they're going to have to make up that loss of revenue someplace.
I think our schools will be impacted.
Oh yeah,
they will be. They will be.
So I'm not sure how. I don't know what their plans are, because I'm sure they're, that. They only have two sources for funding, and that's the state and local.
Exactly, you're exactly right.
And they also get federal funds too. I'll be fair on the schools; they get federal funds. Okay. We actually had an education.
But the federal funds are always targeted.
Yes.
So they can't be spent for anything but what the
federal government allocates it for.
Right. So it's so in other areas it can't make up for it.
Yeah. So
it can supplement it, but it can't make up for it.
Okay. All righty. Well, tell us a little bit about your experience with this first session. It's pretty well known that you pretty much had to hit the ground running.
I did. I was expecting House Bill 5. I was praying that it wouldn't happen, but I wasn't expecting it. And there was a lot of other issues that, that I had to make some tough votes on a lot of issues that wasn't easy votes, but I was honored to be able to represent the constituents. And every time an issue came up, I'm proud to say, if it was with the fire department, I would pick up the phone and get their inputs, the police department. So I think I've built a lot of good relationships with local people during that process. So, and I look forward to working with them more.
All right. Well, this is kind of an off the wall question. What was your biggest surprise, or one of your biggest surprises, going to Frankfort the first time and being in the General Assembly?
That is a tough one. As you know, I'm a complete citizen legislator. I've done it for service. I wasn't a politician.
Right.
I still don't like calling myself a politician. I'd rather call myself a public servant. So the political aspect of it and the amount of money that's put into lobbyist groups, that kind of shocked me, how much special interest actually influence Frankfort.
Right, and that, and I know there's usually at the end of a session, one of the state newspapers will usually total up
the
money that's
tell you who's the biggest.
Yeah, the biggest spenders. Yeah.
Who are the biggest spenders?
And we do have a bill. Some of my colleagues have put a bill forward. They're going to put a bill forward, and we did last year, and I co-sponsored it, to stop taxpayer-funded lobbyists. A lot of these organizations, they get taxpayer funds, then they turn around and hire a lobbyist. And I just don't think that's well spent money for taxpayers. I think we're there to represent the constituents, not big business. I'm all about bringing in industries and, growth, but I think the constituents and the people deserve the voice more than the lobbyist.
Right, and I know that in the past, some big telecommunications companies basically brought draft copies of legislation to legislators saying, this is the type of thing we would like to see introduced. And of course, legislation evolves as it goes through the process and amendments. And it's interesting, it's fascinating to me to watch bills progress and how sections can be completely deleted one day and then brought back the next. And it's fascinating. I don't know, I've always thought it's a little bit like making sausage. It's not a process you really want to watch too closely. But it's a fascinating process. I don't know how legislators keep track of it. I know I struggle to watch a handful of bills and keep track of the changes. Sometimes the LRC website, it's like I see the changes, but they're not in a context I can really understand what's going on.
And actually, this year, myself and a group of other legislators, we've talked to leadership and we proposed some rule changes. So if there's going to be changes, one of the rule changes, if there's going to be changes to a bill, they will allow us at least 24 hours to review those changes. That way we actually know what we're voting on. So, at the end of session, there's so many bills come out, and you can read the bill, like you said, and it would be changed by the time it gets back to you. So that's one of the things that we're advocating for. And a couple other rule changes. We all 100 representatives are different. We represent different people. So we're asking for each representative to get one priority bill to go to committee. That way we can represent our constituents. If it's a bad bill, it'll get voted down in the committee. And if it's a good bill, it can move forward.
Well, I noticed that seems like the trend of the last few sessions, the legislature, is that a lot of the bills are not going through the process. There's supposed to be a process. The bill's introduced. It goes to committee. It's written, and then goes to committee for hearings. And then so many days then before it goes to the floor. But so many times they cut the process short.
Constitutionally, each bill has to have 3 readings. So, there is, some of it's shorter than other, but constitutionally, each bill requires 3 readings. So,
well, the Courier-Journal had a very good article about how many times that the process had been shortened like that, and that it was a much less time for any kind of input from the public.
And last year was a 30-day session, so I know but each bill has to have the 3 readings. So
now,
well, the 3 readings aren't the same thing as
it's not
as input at the committee meetings.
Yes.
Now, the contents of that bill can change between the readings or not?
There can be amendments added to the bill, and then it had to be approved. So, and it has to go through the House and the Senate.
Right, and that's it's amazing how many. When you think about how many bills are filed, and how many just don't go anywhere, and sometimes you'll see similar bills filed by different legislators.
And we don't know what each other's working on. That's one of the things. We talked. We make personal relationships with legislators. Like I was telling you, my constitutional amendment for the senior citizens property tax breaks. I found out at a caucus retreat there were several other legislators working on the exact same constitutional amendment. So it's interesting how many bills, it's duplicates that because people don't know what other people's working on.
So will you continue, have you continued working on that, or are you working with another?
I will file it this year. I can pray and I will advocate for it to get through. And there's several other bills that I feel strongly about. I was telling you about the Save the Guard bill. Currently, our Kentucky National Guard is all over the world in proxy wars, and there hasn't been a declaration from Congress of a war. So, constitutionally, our soldiers shouldn't be in all these places fighting wars because a war hasn't been declared. Right.
Now, is there some regulation or requirement that they can only be deployed for a certain amount of time on that sort of a deployment, or
not that I'm aware of?
Okay.
And I'm a retired military member. I love deploying. A lot of these guys love deploying and they love training, but they shouldn't be sent to wars that's not declared by the Congress, period.
Right.
They can deploy on if they want to do humanitarian missions and stuff, that's different. But to be sent to actual war, proxy wars that we haven't declared is it's not constitutional, and I value our young soldiers' lives. And
Sure. Now tell us a little bit about your the legislation regarding property tax or the senior citizens.
Yes, it would require a constitutional amendment.
Okay.
So it's just to give the General Assembly authority to lower only the property tax for senior citizens and 100% disabled veterans. So not to raise the lower.
Right.
I know we have the homestead exemption, but we've had so many seniors, their property values have went up, doubled or tripled, and the homestead exemption is pretty much void at that point because they're still paying more. So
Yeah, because I think the homestead exemptions right around $40,000, and if over the last 10 years your property's gone from say $140,000 to $275,000, the exemption means much less now.
it does. And also I have to kind of brag on PVA. He has actually helped with another bill I'm going to propose to put a cap on that. So we're still working on the cap for the property tax raises.
Okay.
So
Well, that would be. I will tell you that, and Margie's probably tired of hearing this. Our property value didn't change for 13 years, and then, and this goes back a couple of years, and then it changed. It went up almost 50%. And it's like it would have been much more palatable to me to have it go up every couple of years, 3 years, a percentage rather than one big huge increase. And I'm not.
But you would have paid more.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. It'd been easier to pay that than the big hit the 1 year. But
and it's really hard for senior citizens that's on fixed incomes.
Yeah.
They've owned their home for 30, 40, 50 years. And they honestly can't afford, they're choosing between medication or food or paying their taxes. And, that's not okay. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's been a hard hit for my wife and I that first year because we weren't expecting it and hadn't budgeted for it. But, we paid it. And I'm not, I don't complain about paying taxes, but
I just think it needs to be a little bit fair, especially for senior citizens that's gave so much to our communities over the years and helped build our communities. So.
Right. Of course, I need one of those T-shirts that say it's really weird being the same age as old people, because it's like, well, I could qualify for the homestead exemption, and I didn't know I would. Reach this age, but anyway. Anyway, Candy, I appreciate your service and the information you give out, and keep your constituents educated about what's going on. If it's okay, we need to take a commercial break. All right, you're listening to Bradford and Brooks and our very special guest, State Representative Candy Massaroni, who represents the 50th district in Kentucky, and that basically includes, I think, just the boundaries of Nelson County.
It's just Nelson County.
Okay.
So.
All right. Of course, that may change at some point in the future. I don't know. All right. We will be back after these messages, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you this morning, and we'll be here till the top of the hour. And then stay tuned to WBRT for the best in state and local news. And just a shout out to my son, who is somewhere between Bardstown and Bowling Green. He's on his way home from Western. So we've got his stall in the barn ready, so he can move right in.
and been to the grocery store.
Actually, I think he's bringing some of his extra provisions home. So, and then we'll be going to the grocery store.
You will. Believe me, you will be going to the grocery store.
Anyway, we're always happy to have him home. He since going back to college, he pretty much stays there. We had to entice him home with my daughter's special pie, sweet potato pie, and that got him home for Thanksgiving at least.
Oh, well,
So,
whatever it takes,
that's
Jim,
right.
whatever it takes.
That's right. He's motivated by food, and as many of us are. So, anyway, I'm looking forward to the holidays. And he had a rough finals week, and he's happy to have it over and done with. So we'll be happy to have him home today. All right, enough of that. Now, our guest today is State Representative Candy Massaroni. And Candy, I know big session, 60-day session coming up in January.
Yes,
Actually, I guess it starts in January, but then you almost immediately go into a
Well, I haven't looked at the calendar this year, but I know we'll be there 5 days. Last year was there 4 days a week, so it's going to be a 5-day a week.
Right, but I think usually it seems to start and then you pause for
I know,
X number of days.
I've never understood that.
No.
Well, it's the way it's constitutionally mandated that when we start and when we end. So
Right,
they put
right.
those 60 days in there. So
Right, and then as long as nobody stops the clock at the end of the session too.
that doesn't happen these days, thankfully. So.
Well, that's good. The anyway, you'd mentioned something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I
during
want
the
to
interim?
invite our constituents out. I had to brag on the local elected officials and also Rand Paul's staff and Thomas Massey's staff's all been to these community connects that we have, and they have been very successful. And it's great getting to know what the people actually, what they want us to advocate for, and how we can help them. So. We are working on our schedule for the next 5 community connects. We've hit every community at least twice over the past year. So I will be putting those out on social media, and some of the papers hopefully will run them for us.
Where do you have them?
We have them everywhere. We have them at the libraries, or we had wherever we can find it will allow us to have them. Some of the churches has allowed us to have them there. I think the next one, the one in February, I think the Rotary's going to sponsor, so we'll have that one there. So
now, tell us who else you are there. And it's an impressive list of officials attend these.
Yeah,
and it's a great way to actually shake the hand of our elected officials and get to know them a little better. And anytime you can meet somebody face to face, you're way ahead of the game rather than just a voice on the phone.
Absolutely. Every elected official comes. The magistrates in that area, if it's in their area, they come. The jailer, Justin Hall, which I can't brag enough about. He's always there. Judge Hutchins, he's never missed one, and he's always open and willing to listen to the people. We've had at almost all of them. We've had staff from Rand Paul's office at them. We've had staff from Congressman Massey's office. So,
well, I know that, and I know Senator Paul and our U.S. representatives that represent Nelson County are all about constituent services.
They are, and I think we have a great relationship. If there's something I can't solve, we call one of them up, and they take care of the constituents. So I encourage anybody that has any problems, especially the biggest problem we have on the federal side is passports, because the passports have been pretty backlogged. So if there's a constituent needing to travel, please reach out. We will get you in contact with one of those reps, and they are amazing at making it happen. And also with the Medicare, Medicaid issues, reach out, and we will get you in the right direction to get your problem.
Excellent. Now, Candy, if with the session coming up, and I know that people take an interest in legislation at that time, and the media, of course, covers it. If somebody wants to contact you or get a message to you, what is the best way for them to do so?
Well, my cell phone is public, 502-510-1464. I encourage anybody, if they want to reach me, and also I have my LRC email address. You can email me, and if you don't mind, I will give it to you if you want to put it out. But and there's also the office phone, but I probably have 30-40 constituent calls on my cell phone a day, so that's the best way.
Say that to get your cell phone again.
My cell phone is 502-510-1464, and it's published with my articles every week that we put out as well. So.
Yeah, and thanks for making that available too. I know that both you and Jimmy, Senator Higdon, are very accessible to constituents. And I don't know, to me, it says a lot about your dedication to public service.
And, we are public service. Like I said, I don't like calling myself a politician. I'm a public service servant, and I had to brag on Jimmy. He's been a fabulous mentor for me, and I appreciate him for everything that he's done to guide me along the way.
Well, he's been, since he won the election as represent us in the, I think, 17th district, isn't it? He's been an excellent, of course, he's had years in the House to prepare him for this Senate role, and now he's in leadership, and he's been a wonderful senator, and actually he's been, whenever I have a question about something going on, unless he's in a meeting, he's always been quick to get back with me.
He's great, and like I said, he's been a great mentor. So.
All right. Let's see. The thinking back, of course, I know you're considered, I guess, a freshman.
Yes.
Legislator. Going to start your second General Assembly in January. What are some of the highlights from? Going to Frankfort, I've been in the chambers, and I don't know, to me, it's just being in the Capitol, just really, it's just a place that's thick with history. Let me put it that way. And I don't know, I just respect the people who hold the offices and all the work that goes on. Now, I know sometimes there's disputes and arguments, but that's kind of the history too.
That's politics.
Yeah, well, that's part of the history of legislation, but it all comes down to getting things done and finding a way to agree on disagreeable issues.
And I think every legislator there they want to do right by their constituents, and it's an honor to be able to serve and represent your constituents.
Right, and just a reminder to our listeners that a lot of the work that goes on prior to the session each year, it takes place in committee, and KET does a really great job of covering committees, and they archive the video, so you can go back and watch the committee proceedings, and they take testimony, and it's like I said, a lot of the heavy lifting takes place in committee with legislation, and if you're watching the House or Senate, you're kind of getting the end result of a lot of work that's been taking place ahead of time. And
honestly, the bills, they don't magically appear. It takes a lot of work. I mean, we're working with a lot of organizations and a lot of different people to try to get the right legislation crafted. So everybody that has, I say there's 1,300 bills. That's a lot of man hours that these legislators has put into crafting those bills. So.
Right, and this is just an aside, but as a journalist, it's amazing the number of former journalists I know that ended up working for some branch of the LRC,
yes.
And so I'm sure that they all had pay raises when they left the newspaper industry. But anyway, it's always good to see some of those familiar names show up.
And they do a good job. We have very good staff in Frankfort. They, from the constituent services to everybody involved, we have a really, really good staff. So yeah, and I
appreciate the work that they do to make sure that, for example, your column, Senator Higdon's column, that those things get posted in a timely manner.
So.
We asked you for your phone number, but I think it's also a good point to let people know that people can call the legislative message line, 800 number, and you can you can either leave it for one representative or all of them.
And those do make a difference. We get a slip.
Yeah.
We call it the green slip. It's the historical name, the
Right.
green slip. So we actually know what our constituents, if they call about
Right.
a particular bill, I will see 30 constituents called against
Right.
it or for it. So,
Right.
I mean, it does make a difference.
No, it does make a difference. And that legislative unless they've changed it,
It's the same.
it's an 800 number, 800-372-7181. 372-7181. So if you want to comment on a bill, then
Yes. And you can also
you can
call.
get to all the legislators or just your legislator.
And you can also call 502-564-8100, and they can get you connected to the right person.
What, in your opinion, what's the, if you're, of course, during the session, looking at legislation, what's the best way to have your voice heard? Without, I would hesitate to text or call you during a session simply because I know you're busy.
No, I actually encourage, I always have my phone with me, so if I have constituents, if I get calls, it's harder to take, but if I got texts coming through, or calling the hotline because we get those throughout the day. So on updates on how many people's calling, and they have a list of how many people oppose, how many people support, and that does sway your decision if you know if you have 200 or 300 constituents calling saying no, I don't want this, and you can actually pick up the phone and call someone back and see what the reasons are why they don't want it.
Excellent.
So
excellent. All righty. Now, are you active on social media?
I am, and I wanted to be a lot more active last session. I had planned on putting everything out on social media, but there was absolutely not the time to put everything out on there. So I made a lot of calls, calling people, if the bills affected certain people, I would call them and get their input on it. And, some of the bills that came forth about moral issues and stuff, and I let everybody know up front, I'm a Christian, I'm a child of Christ, and there's some things that I can't vote on, and I will tell the constituents that and the reason why. So.
Okay. What are you have any particular goals for this next session that you would like to see accomplished?
Well, I'm hoping to bring some awareness to, was talking a little bit earlier about some of the issues surrounding the black residue on people's houses from the bourbon industry.
Right.
So I'm working on legislation, and I'm hoping it'll be finished to fall on the first day of session, but I think it's something that needs addressed, and once I put that out there, kind of got reconfirmed. I had, like I said, over 200 phone calls and emails from constituents saying, thank you, finally, somebody, so I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and I think our bourbon industry wants to be good community partners, so
Sure.
I'm hoping they'll be willing to listen and offer some solutions as well.
Right, and I think that, I grew up on Maple Hill in the shadow of Barton's Distillery, and I remember the days when they used to burn coal and the ash would kind of fall like rain.
Oh,
and, and of course you were right next to it too.
Well, I mean, fortunately, I think they had pretty much changed over by the time, most of the time. But when we moved into that house, the owner who a previous owner who happened to be the manager at Barton's had someone pour paint to seal all the windows. You couldn't open the windows. We spent a lot of time and money getting those windows open and repainted.
Right, but
that's how bad this ash was.
I think that it's, bourbon industry can be, and I think in some cases they are good neighbors with some, but I think that it would go a long way to keeping their neighbors happy, because unfortunately they're not all distilleries are located out in the country, and of course you take the case with Barton's, they were out in the country when they were established, and the city kind of grew around them. So but anyway, that'll be interesting to watch, and I think that I'm sure you got a lot of appreciation, because I know, as I was telling you, Ray Murphy, who lived across the street from me on Center Street, had a special soap and bleach concoction that he would use to clean houses with, because all our houses were painted white, and then after a couple seasons they'd look pretty dingy.
Yeah,
but
they're gray.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it's just property rights. If you make a mess on somebody's property,
Right.
that property owner, that's their right to have it cleaned up. So
Right.
I'm all about property rights.
Right.
And I think they want to be good. And I know some of the distilleries are,
doing that now.
they offer reimbursement to some of the homeowners
Right.
near them. So
Right, and I think that's just being good neighbors.
And I'm sure they want to do the right thing, and
Sure.
they will be open to discussion on how
Right.
we can.
Right.
I'd be interested in that.
All right. Well, Candy, we're getting down to the wire. Anything else you'd like to pass along to our listeners?
No, I mean, I appreciate them, the constituents selecting me, and I look forward to serving them in this next session, and I'm always available. We will put out our Community Connects for the next 5 months on the schedule here pretty soon. So
Okay. All right. And then we know that you've got, as a member of the House, you've got an election just about every other year, so you have to shift into campaign mode frequently.
we do, but my priority right now is serving this session and
Sure.
taking care of my constituents like I promised to do. So
Right, and once you get into campaign mode, Margie and I will have you back on to discuss your campaign and desire to serve the district again. All right. Well, Margie, do you have any announcements from? I think we've got. We can tell our listeners our next guest, can't we?
Yes, we can. We're having Mayor Dick Heaton is going to come on. He's going to talk about the new Mayor's Park and any recent developments. Like for example, the proposed sale of the of service
Cable and
our
internet.
cable and internet services, and there are a lot of things happening, and so sort of catch us up on everything.
Right, and there's a lot of. The city has it seems like a growing list of projects for its infrastructure that it needs to
Right.
keep track of too. And I know that trying to get everything updated is is an ongoing process.
Right.
Some of our
There's a lot of stuff going on in Bardstown.
right,
I mean,
a lot of growth and
Yes.
and the need to kind of rebuild old infrastructure too. If you've got water lines, sewer lines that are aging and need to be updated
Right.
or repaired or replaced. All right. Well, Margie, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you, Candy.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so
for
much.
having me.
Pam.
I
Yes.
appreciate your time today. All right. That's going to do it for this week's Bradford and Brooks. We will be back next Wednesday, and we'll have the video of this show available on YouTube, and I'll have it posted, link to it posted on Facebook and on the Nelson County Gazette, hopefully by the weekend. Until then, till next week, have a great week, everybody. And Margie and I will be back next Wednesday for another Bradford and Brooks. Until then, you have a great week.
Hometown Radio, WBRT Bardstown, 1320 AM, 97.1 FM, and on 94.9 FM in Lebanon, playing all the classics from country's legend.